You say, get the fuck out of my house, because it's your house and they have no right to share it. Let's say you come to your house, and common analogy Palestinians use. Let's say you come home from vacation and somebody's living in your house, and you say, hey man, what the hell are you doing in your house, in my house? And they say, I'm sorry, I realize, you must be so upset. Let's do the following. Me and my family will live on the second floor and you live on the first floor. And what do you say to the squatter? You say, get the fuck out of my house. And let's say the squatter says, okay, I understand why you're upset. Let's try this instead. Instead of us living on the second floor and you living on the first floor, let's share the house. So we can use the kitchen together, and we can use the bathrooms together, and we can use the pool together and the garage together. And you know what you say to that guy? You say, get the fuck out of my house, because it's your house and they have no right to share it. They have no right to split it and to take the second floor. They have no right to share it with you equally. And in that way, two states and one state, which are often held to be opposites, are really the different sides of the same coin, because they both involve Jews sharing the land with Palestinians. And it does not make any sense. It's incoherent in the light of Palestinian claims that all the land is theirs, that Jews are illegal aliens, that they don't belong there. And Adar, you said that, well, we settled there. Okay, and I understand that they're upset. At a certain point, you have to accept this as belonging. And here's my rule, okay? You belong in a place if you were born to people who were born to people there. If your parents are native born and you're native born, then you belong in that, okay? That's the justification for Zionism. We live here now, okay? Did we do things wrong in the past? I don't think so, but let's not go to the past. Let's talk about the present. We live here now. The vast majority of us do not have any other passports. It is wrong to kick us out. And I know that Adar agrees with me. It's wrong to kick us out. And that's what the Palestinians want to do. They want to kick us out because the land is theirs and it doesn't belong to us. And we have no right to it in any arrangement. And if they believe what they say, and if we believe what they say, then we cannot come to any form of nonviolent agreement, okay? Because saying that the whole land is theirs rules it out. We're not going to leave. We're going to stay. We live here. And they're going to stay too. Even though I think Palestinians are a fake people and they were invented yesterday. Sometimes I like putting my microwave on 5 seconds and watching it run so I can appreciate the depth and the breadth of Palestinian history. That was a joke. They exist. But the basis for their existence is not that they're an ancient people. They're not. They were invented 5 minutes ago. The basis is that they live here now. And we also live here now. And we're not just going to leave. So if you've exhausted all of your nonviolent options, then the only thing left is violence. And so the question with Gaza, coming back to that, is how much violence can Israel use? How much violence is Israel able to use? And you're allowed to say Israel went too far. But that's the only choice we have.
Cool. So the house analogy, it's interesting you bring it up because it's also something I hear some of the hardliner Palestinians bring up as a reason for why we can't compromise. It's not a good analogy because a house is a very small space, and living with somebody you hate in a confined space comes with a great emotional toll. That's not the same thing as sharing a piece of land. So the analogy breaks down very quickly. In terms of Palestinians not accepting us, you brought an example. What year was that example from? Where they said they couldn't.
1936.
Okay, yeah. So
let's cites it in one state, two states.
Yeah. So let's fast forward nearly a century, right?
Yeah.
The PA, who used to be more radical than Hamas, recognized Israel's right to exist in 1989 and has been willing to cooperate and negotiate with us. In fact, one of the reasons that there hasn't been a third intifada is very likely security cooperation between the PA and Israel. Now, instead of Israel rewarding the PA and strengthening Abbas for this cooperation, what we do is just continue to expand settlements and continue a system of oppression on the Palestinians in the West Bank. What we did in Gaza was the opposite. When Hamas was violent towards us, we withdrew. So what we did was we created the situation where we said, oh, when you cooperate with Israel, we'll take more land. And when you're violent towards us, you'll retreat. So we made a huge mistake in, on one hand, rewarding violence and showing there's a consequence to cooperation. We've had decades where we could have been working with Abbas to give them a Palestinian state, but instead we've continued to expand slowly. And with this expansion comes more checkpoints, and with more checkpoints comes more humiliation. We often say these are people that only understand force. It's not true. More than anything, they speak the language of honor, and we dishonor them daily. History is full of extremists becoming moderate when certain conditions are met. The first leaders of this country were part of Jewish militias, many of which engaged in terrorism. The IRA was a terrorist organization that became part of a legitimate government. You had the same thing in South Africa. You even have a video of Nelson Mandela singing "Kill the Boers." And then he became a great peacemaker. Currently, the leader of Syria is Al-Qaeda, and he's willing to normalize with us. So this idea that the Palestinian rejection is somehow set in stone and not subject to change given a change in environmental conditions is just, in my opinion, a fundamentally flawed way of looking at it. We saw that during Oslo, you had over 50% of Palestinians support two states. They had hope. They believed that it was possible. By inspiring hope and by showing that through cooperation, peace is possible, sovereignty is possible, or equality is possible, whichever direction we want to take it in, you can inspire a movement of Israelis and Palestinians that will agree that violence is not the way. But when we reward violence and oppress those cooperating with us, we reinforce more of the same. And when we maintain a status quo that humiliates and dishonors Palestinians daily, they're never just going to decide to love us. So yeah, here and there we try for peace, but we've done very little relative to the big picture. And when we look at history, we see that obviously people change. It's the only constant, change. This is reflected in public opinion polling. This is reflected throughout history. So I don't accept this idea saying they'll never accept us.
I didn't say they'll never accept this, but you have to evaluate things based on information. I just want to briefly touch on.
I'm evaluating. I recognize it's not easy, but we're barely trying.